Hey everybody, this is Brian Aguila. Episode number 27 of Origin Stories on Creativity. I got to speak with Jillian Purrazzi. She is a science fiction author. She grew up a missionary's kid, which, as she states during the podcast, means she is from absolutely nowhere and everywhere at the same time. She's gotten to grow up in the Pacific. Presently, she lives in Florida with her husband, and according to her bio on her website, way too many cats. She has a lot of good things to say. We had a great conversation about what it means to write, about what it means to publish, about what it means to have aspirations to put your words out into the world. I enjoy getting a lot out of conversations, and I got a lot out of Mrs. Purrazzi's conversation, as I hope you all will. And I will let Mrs. Purrazzi continue to put her words out there for herself. And here she is. We were talking back and forth via email, and you were mentioning how there was a little bit of controversy in terms of your cover. Did you want to talk about that a little bit? I was looking at it. Did you do the art for that, or how did that come about?
No, actually, I'm sorry if we got confused. That was not the controversy wasn't over the cover. I had a cover artist who did that, and she did a wonderful job on it. Did exactly what I wanted. I attempted to do my own cover,
Okay.
which is a big no-no for the.
Oh no.
And I did a drawing. Something a little bit new for me. I worked with ink and watercolor and tried to do something.
Oh, neat.
That was a little bit more sci-fi and a little bit more comic booky. And apparently the pose that I took it from just wasn't going over well with everybody. So there was quite a few people who thought that it looked a little bit more like erotica.
Erotica.
So that's where the problem was. I was no, I definitely don't want people picking up my book and thinking it's erotica. They will be very much disappointed. So
That's so crazy with all the type of, I mean, there is a lot of covers out there that's very erotica in nature, and with fantasy and science fiction with the bodices and the breasts spilling out and stuff like that. It's like the books
yeah,
about dragons. Really? There's not a dragon on this cover.
yeah, it's it confused me a little bit, but that's okay. That's
Are
people
you
what
are
people think.
you is your background in art, or was this your first attempt kind of to dabble in the medium?
Oh no, I've been working with art since I was really young.
Okay.
Um,
What came first, the art or the writing?
it's hard to say.
Oh, really?
Probably the art. I was definitely more serious with art when I was younger. I had some lessons and whatnot. Of course, none of it's computer graphics. It's
None
all
of it. You've
fine
never
art.
played with like Photoshop or anything like that?
I have tried and it just falls flat on its face. So, and my husband was encouraging me to try as well. And I'm
I
just,
encourage you to try, especially today's day and age with, getting stuff online. I mean, you have your novel online, right?
yeah, I have the prequel novel online. That's published. Um, and yeah, like I've done some covers just for when I had my books up on Wattpad.
Hmm. Oh, you're a Wattpadder too, huh?
Yeah, I started off in there just to kind of try my hand with my writing and see what the audience was and whatnot. It was a good place to start and learn some marketing skills and
We're,
whatnot.
we're definitely going to circle back around the Wattpad because that's a conversation I'd like to have with you. I've played
Yeah,
around with the Wattpad too, but I
yeah,
want to make sure we handle your art because I like to play around with art too,
yeah.
especially paints. When I was a kid, I loved pastels.
Oh, yeah.
What was your art of choice as a child?
Mostly when I was younger, I was working with graphite pencils and charcoal.
Charcoal.
When I got a little
Okay.
bit older, I got really into watercolors, probably because they were so hard for me. I just had to perfect them.
I've never played with watercolors. That actually seems, yeah, exactly, very difficult.
Yeah, they're hard to work with, but once you
Delicate
understand,
hand.
yeah, well, the difference between watercolor and a lot of other painting is that the other painting, you're applying the paint to a canvas or to a paper. With watercolor, you're staining the paper. So it's
Hmm.
a very different mindset going in. You don't want to overwork it. You don't want anything blending. So it's a hard mindset to get into, but I think it's really rewarding once you learn how to do it.
It's very interesting with charcoals. It's kind of the same way too. Whereas I'm the kind of, when I work with not pastels, what am I talking about? When I work with acrylics, I pile the paint on.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake, I can, wait for the paint to dry and then I can color over it, kind of. So that's why I end up with mountains of paint on there. But if I work with pastels, I have the same attitude. I end up with this muddled mess.
Oh yeah.
The same thing with watercolors. I mean, it's a very delicate type of. You've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
That speaks of your mindset. I guess in a way, a delicate. Do you write in the same way?
Uh,
Very carefully
Probably,
choosing
yes.
your.
I love to research. I like to know what I'm getting into.
Are you an
Um,
outliner?
I, strangely enough, I'm not.
You're not.
But I like to say I'm somewhere in between because I have a tendency to write the entire novel in my head like
Mhm.
4 or 5 times over, just while driving.
Before you put word one down on
Yeah.
paper.
So then when I go
Really?
ahead and write, I usually have ideas of, the exact kind of words I want to use, what I want to happen in the scene. I'm pretty deliberate with what I put in the scenes. So it's not outlining. Usually when I start outlining, I kind of go crazy and just start writing down backstories and
Huh.
research and whatnot. So I can't.
What makes it on the novel for you then? If you're writing backstory, excuse me, I'm getting over some kind of horrible. My son is sick. As soon
Oh,
as he
I'm
has a runny
sorry.
nose, I get sick. Man, I've
Oh
been sick
yeah.
all week. Yeah.
Yeah, I
One second, I'm gonna
understand
put you on mute.
that. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I was saying, I have no clue. I was coughing. It sounded like words. When you were writing backstory,
Hmm.
does that make the novel? No.
It really depends. I'm very careful about my point of view. I'm very careful about what my readers actually want on the story, what they want to read. So I usually have a good amount of backstory planned for all my characters. I really love characters. I really love world building. So I like to have a good amount of history in there and a good amount of backstory for my characters so I can understand them. Um, but when I when I'm writing, I don't want to put anything in there that's not going to contribute to the actual story. So a lot of my backstories do kind of fold back into the plot. And so the ones that are important to the plot, I will put in there, or the ones that are important to help understand a character's motivation.
Yeah.
But if they're
That's
not important, I don't want to put them in.
no, I understand that completely. It's very interesting. I was talking to my one of my earlier guests is a very significant world builder. He
Hmm.
spent years building up this world, basically like a toy train set where he had the rails running through the mountains and the towns with the police officers and the toy cars and the people waiting for the train, and he had it all set up. The
Oh
town, the
yeah.
villagers. He had this really intricate world, and I asked him, "What about your characters in the story?" He said, "I didn't have one. I
Hmm.
had nothing like that." That's so disappointing. He said, "I'm right. You're right. It was very disappointing. I had to tear it all down. It was useless to me.
Yeah.
Years and almost a decade worth of my work was gone because I just had nothing to do with it. This big play thing, I had nothing to play with it. I had nothing to play within it." And when you build these backstories, do you find yourself actually playing in them when you write your novel, or do you find yourself actually delving forward and writing your story without it? Most of the time, when you write Malfunction,
Yeah.
do you just push forward most of the time without the backstory, or is the backstory kind of just pushing you forward anyway?
It kind of depends on the situation. Like, I spend a lot of time daydreaming, have got my head in the clouds, and I have very long drive to work and whatnot. So I do have a lot of
How long did you
time.
drive?
45 minutes to an hour depends on the
Okay,
traffic. Um,
be podcast time for me.
yeah, I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I do a lot of. Every once in a while, I have an idea that I just need to turn off all the noise and kind of develop the idea. Probably
Oh,
not the best for my driving skills, but
I have tinnitus, man. I just get that little hum in my ears. I have to put something there.
oh yeah. Um, but yeah, as far as staying on task, I think when I'm actually writing, I can push forward. I do have points in which I tend to get what people would call writer's block, and then I need to kind of
Okay.
stop and figure out where I'm going. But for the most part, um,
But you never get bogged down in minutia.
I like to know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I usually, before I write a book, I have at least the climax planned, so I know where I'm going. I know which scene is next. I write chronologically, so I don't like to skip around. So I have a plan for where I'm going. So backstories and whatnot are usually reserved for the planning time, for when I'm trying to figure out what's going on in an actual story. Um, and there are times when I kind of stop and try and figure things out or write it down if it gets to be a little bit too overwhelming.
Well,
So,
you're on number 3 right now, right? How many novels have you written?
uh, in first draft form, I have, not counting my little teenage
Well, just like
issues.
you say you published out there with an audience.
I have one published novella. The prequel to the trilogy is published currently.
Okay.
Um, I have. I'm working on the fourth or fifth draft of Malfunction
Ooh.
with my editor right now.
Okay.
Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Um, and book two, Disintegration, is in its third draft.
It's a great title.
Thank you. And Connection, the last one, is finished in its first draft. I have one of my critique partners reading that through, but I haven't had a chance to actually do my beta version of that. So it's in first draft form. It's a little bit rougher than I'm used to giving to my critique partners.
Is
Um,
that it for the story, or is there going to be a fourth part?
well, it kind of depends on how it's received. I have four more prequels, one that my audience has already asked for, a few that are actually antagonists in the story that I find really interesting that I think people will want to explore a little bit more. Um, and those will probably be the same as the prequel I have out currently, about 25,000 words. Probably go out free to my mailing list before I actually publish them on Amazon. Um, and then if my audience is interested, I have a fantasy series that I'm working on now. So I figure I'll go ahead with that for a few books. And if there's interest, then I do have a follow up trilogy planned, um, and possibly a prequel series that would deal with the aliens in the story, their invasion, and the actual apocalyptic events that happen.
Wow, so you're really hardworking.
I'm a daydreamer. I spend a lot of time in my head, so I have a lot planned. But yeah, it takes a while to actually get everything
So you're
working.
using this really magic word, audience.
Yeah,
Where are they coming? What are they? Who are these people? These are the eyeballs that I want. Where are they coming from? All writers fantasize about those
yeah.
that magic word. Where did you come up with these people at?
Um, well, a lot of my early readers are from Wattpad, and I know I
Yeah.
mentioned that before.
Okay.
And it is Wattpad's a little bit more difficult for someone who does want to write seriously.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
because nobody paid attention to me.
yeah,
Not saying I want to write seriously or anything. I'm just saying when I threw a story up there, I was like, hey guys, here's a story. Chirp chirp chirp
yeah, and that's what Wattpad is.
chirp.
It's great for learning um, marketing, because with Wattpad, the audience is all a lot younger. You're looking at teenagers. They like really cliche stories, a lot of romance. Um, so it's very hard to find your specific audience. I found what really worked for me on Wattpad was going on the um,
Fanfic.
the forums,
Oh,
going
okay.
on the forums and talking with the people in the forums, posting a lot. And usually, if I followed what I was interested in, then I could find people who would be interested in what I was writing. Because if
Mhm.
I'm interested in what I'm writing and I show interest in whatever they were talking about, usually they're like, oh well, you seem to be knowledgeable in this area, or you seem to enjoy this. I'm going to check out your book. Um,
Jennifer Ember said similar things as well. She was one of my earlier guests and has a little bit of a following on Wattpad as well.
Yeah,
She said, you know, get interested in what people are saying, respond back to them, and they'll look at what you're writing.
definitely. And that's Wattpad is a social platform first and foremost. So if you're not treating it as a social platform, then it's not going to work for you. You know, you have to interact with people, and I think that's essential for marketing. Um, just at the
On
base of
Wattpad.
everything, you have to connect with people. People, you know, they're not going to be interested in your book if they're not connecting with you.
In general, you're saying, not even just on Wattpad.
Oh yeah, just in general, and that's I've seen the same thing, you know, moving in a larger sphere onto Twitter and Facebook. The same kind of thing. And Twitter's a little bit easier because it is an older audience, and it's quite established. Um, but yeah, right now I think most of my readers are actually writers as well. At least most of my vocal readers. Um, it's hard to know when readers don't actually respond to you, and I think, you know, the portion of readers that do respond is very small. A lot of people just want to read their book and move on with their life.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, the thing was interesting about Wattpad is that you knew that you were getting readers. That number would tick up.
exactly. They're very vocal, and you
What,
get a
even not
lot of
even the vocal
feedback.
part of it, I mean, just the fact that you're getting the clicks, you would know.
Yeah, yeah. You see the reads, you see where the reads stop. You know, if no one's getting past your first chapter, you know you're not putting a hook in there. If no one's getting past your third chapter, you know they're not connecting with your characters. Um, you know, you see more likes on certain chapters. You know what people are attracted to in your writing. Um, so all that kind of that fast feedback loop on Wattpad is really really great. Uh, so yeah.
And you think that that your fiction has legs off of Wattpad also?
I know I got a few readers off of Wattpad. I don't think a lot of them follow over. Um, because Wattpad is a lot of young readers and because everything on Wattpad is free, you're not going to find a lot of readers who are going to be interested in paying for your book. Um, Now, the prequel I actually didn't put up on Wattpad until after I published. And because I haven't been putting as much effort into Wattpad, I haven't seen the same response to that as I did to the first couple of books.
Yeah.
And I know there are a few readers who have followed me over and a few readers who have expressed interest, especially in paperbacks. You know, they're younger, they're YA readers. A lot of YA readers like their paperbacks.
Yeah.
Um, so I think my readership is more from Twitter, actually, um, from Twitter, connecting to authors on Twitter, and then those authors, once they connect to you, they're more willing to support you, and then their readers will take interest in you as well.
How did you
So
successfully connect to people on Twitter?
Twitter is really easy for writers. It is a um, author's paradise. There's a very strong author community on Twitter, so you just have to know the hashtags and be willing to get involved. Support other readers, read other authors, read their work. Um, you know, use the hashtag games to your advantage, um, and do very focused marketing. So, you know, I'm writing a sci-fi trilogy. I don't want to just put on a whole bunch of stuff about, um, you know, writing memes and, you know, pictures of what I'm eating for that day or whatnot. Although, you know, it's enjoyable to put those things up every once in a while. People do want to be able to connect to you. Um, I do try put up things that are connect to my readers, um, you know, science and technology and research that's interested me, or you know, characters that I particularly like, stuff like that.
Okay. And what? And so it's Twitter and Wattpad.
Yeah,
Are you Facebooking?
I have a Facebook page. I haven't got a lot of activity on that. Facebook is really difficult. They really do kind of repress um, the people who are trying to use it for monetary gain, which I understand. You know, they want to keep it social. So, and I'm not really willing to game that system too much right now. I'm focusing on getting my books out so that if people want to read my stuff, they actually have stuff to read. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of what you've tried,
Hmm.
where have you found the least success where you're just surprised? And what do you think that you did that just didn't work? Or what do you think you could have done differently?
Uh,
Do you understand what I'm asking? Did that
yeah,
come out wrong? Okay.
yeah. Tumblr.
Tumblr. Oh, I don't get it. I don't get it. I put stuff on Tumblr all the time and it's like a black hole.
Yeah, I
Everything's like a
try.
black hole to me.
Exactly. And it's just not my audience. I just don't connect
Yeah.
to the that mindset that's on Tumblr. I don't understand how it works. So I tried a little bit. I didn't try too hard, I'll admit, but it just makes no sense to me, and I really wasn't willing to put in the effort to try. I
As a
know,
blogging platform too, it's like you
yeah,
put words out there, but it's like it's not really words. It's more like they want pictures or whatever, I guess.
yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
even sure
Pinterest
what
is
they
like that
want.
for me too. I just don't get
Yeah,
Pinterest.
Pinterest is great for me for collecting inspiration and trying to find some research and stuff. There's some great things on there as far as that. But for marketing, I haven't had much success. But I think Pinterest works a lot more for people who are looking for female readers, for romance readers, and whatnot. And that's definitely not the focus of my writing.
So,
So
what is the end game? The end game is eyeballs, right?
yeah,
And what do we do with those eyeballs? I mean, we said free, ultimately, money, getting people to pay for the novel, pay us for what we're doing in front of the computer. The 60, 70, 80,000 word novel that we produce, or
yeah,
I talk to this is mainly where all these conversations end up. How do we pay our mortgage with the effort that we put forth? When
yeah.
there are, people like John Scalzi, I mentioned his name. I like John Scalzi. He
Hmm.
wrote a book called the Red Shirts, where he decided that he was going to write every single dialogue tag as he said, she said. He's
Hmm.
an interesting writer. He just says, what's the rule? Well, you know what? Screw that rule. I'm
Yeah,
just going to do whatever I want. And the guy lives on a farm in Ohio and he makes money and he goes to cons and, people download his book off of BitTorrent or whatever.
yeah.
And I guess he still makes money. So my question is, people download his book for free. He gets to
Hmm.
live the utopian lifestyle, whereas we sit in front of our computers and struggle and wonder how we're going to make money.
Yeah.
Is it putting our words in front of people's eyeballs on Wattpad? Or is it that it's just too late for us and John Scalzi graduated college and published his first novel 10 years before we were given an opportunity? What's next?
Yeah. Well,
What's the wave? You know what I mean? That dude
yeah.
caught a wave before us. What's the wave coming?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it. Marketing, and definitely there's the
I don't think he had to
what's
worry
the
about that.
umbrella.
Anne Rice didn't have to worry about that either. It's that traditional indie publishing
Oh
thing.
yeah.
It's that slush pile that we're all just trying to crawl our way to the top of, that Andy Weir crawled his way to the top of. He did the same thing you did, right?
Yeah.
He
Well,
had an
slightly differently.
audience,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, he was with us in this slush pile of people writing. He had his audience. He wrote what was it, The Egg? Have you ever read that?
I haven't. No.
Oh my God, it's really good. It's a short story. It's like 1,000 words.
Yeah.
He became famous off of this. It's just
Hmm.
it's a stupid short story on the internet.
Yeah.
It's been translated into countless languages. And then he wrote the Mars thing on the
Yeah.
internet, and it became a movie. The guy's
Yep.
famous. I mean, off of that. So it can happen. And he's one of us. He's
Oh
a
yeah.
brother to me and you.
Yep.
He's not John Scalzi. He's not a Stephen King or Anne Rice. He's me and you.
Yeah.
And now he's a millionaire and he gets to live on a farm.
Yeah.
So
I think I think a lot of it depends on what your motivation is.
to live on a farm. No, I'm joking. I want to live in the
Yeah.
city.
Now, a lot of that is just pure dumb luck. There's certain things that are attractive to certain people at certain times, depending on, the political climate and the culture and, world events and whatnot. Right now, dystopia is really, really big because Trump got into office. And so everyone is reading, The Handmaid's Tale.
When did Idiocracy come out? You remember that
Yeah.
movie? That was so good. Was that Bush? That was
I'm not
Bush,
even
right?
sure. was probably overseas at that point. Um,
Are you a vet?
no, I'm actually a missionary's kid. I grew up overseas.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I think
Um,
maybe it was the Bush administration. Idiocracy came out. We've got the same situation again.
yeah, yeah,
So
and
yeah, I mean, you're
yeah,
probably right.
dystopians were just kind of over, especially after the whole YA craze. People were just like dystopian, like who wants to read that garbage? And now they're big again, which
But
I
then
like. I'm very
you had
dystopian.
the Catlin stories during Obama. I mean, dystopian futures are like huge always.
Oh yeah. It's just um, right now there's a certain type that's really popular because there's a certain fear that comes into play with the political climate that we're in.
Yeah.
And that's just pure dumb luck. You can't plan for that kind of thing.
You know what it is though? I don't think you can plan for anything. I think you just have to
Yeah,
write the story that's in your soul as much as, that's ludicrous
yeah,
to say or whatever. I think you just have to write your story.
yeah, definitely.
Finish
And
your
then
stupid
that's
story and then write your next story and then just keep writing it and then hopefully you do something well, do something
yeah,
good.
yeah. If you're in this to make money, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Creative businesses are not money making businesses. Historically, they never have been. And especially these days with the internet, people expect things for free. They expect us to write stories and shovel them out there for free, and they get irritated if we put cliffhangers because, oh my goodness, they're forcing you to buy another
I
book.
get irritated. I'm not writing my novel right now to put a cliffhanger at the end. I'm writing my novel right now to figure out what the hell the ending is because I really have no clue what the novel ending that I'm writing is, or novel the ending of my novel is right now.
Yeah,
I'm annoyed with myself. I'm like, what the hell am I writing this thing for? I can't wait to figure out what my ending is.
yeah.
You know?
And that's, people, especially these days, we get our music for free on YouTube,
Yeah.
and Spotify. We get our movies as much as we want them for, what, 5-10 bucks a month on Netflix and Hulu. We expect to get our books the same way, and we don't stop to think how much hard work people are putting into it. We sit behind our computer screens, and we're a very selfish culture. We're a very selfish people.
What it is, though, honestly, it's I start thinking about that gigantic skyscraper down the street from where I live. Some fat, not even fat, some skinny dude in a suit who gets to ride his helicopter home at the end of the day, smoking his big fat cigar. He gets to jump into his Olympic-sized pool.
hmm
Why does he get to make millions of dollars and play golf all day while, I'm sweating my ass off on the subway riding home?
Yeah,
That's what I think of. I think of the just disparagement of wealth. Yes, I'm busting my ass sitting in front of my computer. Yeah, my poor wife only got a month and a half home with my children. I
hmm
just don't understand it. You know what I mean? I just don't understand why there's so much difference.
yeah,
While, some person wrote a song I love, he didn't make any money for it.
yeah.
So why should I pay him any money for that song? It's not him making it. Somebody else is making that money for that song. I just don't think that corporate America is doing right by anybody, whether they're an artist or some dude who thought up an idea to screw over the American worker so he can buy a house and just take it away from him in 5 years.
Yeah. Well, now that I'm getting into the business mindset, I have a lot more respect for people who do make it. I don't think it's easy to make it without working hard, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
But there's a way of living that was natural to us as human beings once upon a time where if you were going to eat, you ate because you worked hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think for men especially, my husband talks about it all the time. He goes and he sits in a chair at work, you know, and then comes home and has a hard time keeping up with bills. And it's really frustrating with him that he's working his entire life away and not getting the rewards. Whereas, he's like, let's move to Alaska where if we're going to eat, I can go hunt something. And if
I
we're
would move
going
to Alaska
to,
in a heartbeat, but then I hear those stories where grizzly bears meet you at the river. I don't want to fight for sustenance over at the river with a grizzly bear. I just don't want to do it.
yeah, I talked to him about that too. He's like, bring a gun. And I'm like, I don't
No,
think
it
this
doesn't
is how
work.
it
You
works.
shoot them in the face and they still eat you.
He's a little bit of a city boy. That's okay. I love him anyway.
I'm too much of a city boy. I don't think I can make it in a fight with a grizzly bear. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, I know I couldn't. I'm enough of a country person to know that. I don't want to try.
I've done some country people that I don't even think it matters how much of a country person. You know, it was so funny. There's this woman. There's like one of those. I don't have TV anymore, but
Yeah.
she was like on one of those shows, and she was a country girl. You know, living in the bush in Alaska, and she went to the river and got eaten by a bear.
Oh yeah. Doesn't
Like,
matter if you're from the city or the country. Tooth and claw is still going to be.
bear wins. It
Chew
just
you and
happens. That's how it works.
Yep. That's why I write books about it instead of doing it.
That's exactly. Use your imagination. You
Yes.
could win that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think, in today's culture, it's very much, I think, especially for men, it's the merit has been taken right out of it.
Yeah.
You don't get to work hard and see the rewards from it. You get to work hard and watch someone else, piggyback off of your work. And that's
It's
very
not like it's a
hard.
new thing either. It's like the last decade and a half has been
No,
that way.
it's not. It's not a new thing at
It's like a
all. It's
slow
not.
progression to this point where everything is cement and cold and impossible.
Yeah. And I think there are still places where it is possible to put that hard work in and see the results from it. But, and it's this weird balance between wanting to work hard and see the results and that joy from that, and also the fact that we don't want to work hard. We want the results. So it's kind of this weird in between state, where there's less farmers than there ever have been, and if there's any place where you can work hard and see results, it's out farming.
But that story of the farmer who works his ass off and then accidentally planted a Monsanto seed, and he gets sued to shitting back because he reaped the harvest of corn had Monsanto plants in there that he didn't pay
Oh
for.
yeah.
It's
Went
like,
to a
oh
third world
well,
country.
he has to kill himself now because he has nothing, or he grew the
Yeah.
wrong plants, or
Yeah.
his tractor broke down and he tried to fix it himself, and John Deere rode in and said, "Oh, dude, what you tried to do? That was our job to fix your tractor."
Yeah.
And
That's
where's
I'm a firm believer that the more you expect life to be happy, the less you're going to be happy. There's, and part of this is because I'm a Christian, and my viewpoint is just a little bit different from the rest of the world on that. But there's this idea that's kind of invaded our culture that we're supposed to be happy all the time. And if you're not happy all the time, then something's wrong. And your life isn't worth living. And I don't think that's true. And I think the more you work towards this ethereal version of happy, the less happy you're actually going to be, because you're always looking for something that you just can't quite figure out. What is happy?
I saw Baby Driver yesterday. I guess I
Yeah.
can't tell you what I was about to tell you because it spoiled the whole movie, but it really is kind of like a grass is greener on the other side, type
Yeah.
situation. Things are darker before they're light type movie.
Yeah.
And that's really what life is. You can't appreciate happiness if you don't experience unhappiness, basically.
Yeah.
You have to know what sorrow is before you can smile.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't appreciate happiness without crying a little bit, being sad.
Yeah. And I write really dark fiction. And that's a lot of my readers and even my, editors that, this is really dark. Everyone's getting hurt all the time. And it's like, yes, yeah, it's really dark. But that makes the lessons that I learned and the joyful moments that much better. And when I'm reading a dark book and I get to the end, I usually feel better for it. I usually feel happier for it. The life of perfect bliss and joy on a Caribbean island with no cares in the world is really unsatisfying.
It's not the case. I grew up in Florida
I'm
because you're
in
gonna have a
Florida.
hurricane.
I hate Florida.
Oh my God, it's horrible down there. You're gonna have a hurricane and it's gonna be horrible. I lost my electricity for 4 days one summer.
Yeah,
4
don't get
days.
me started on Florida. I hate Florida. I mean, I grew up in a third world country on the top of a mountain. We lost power for weeks on end. So that's not even the case for me.
Okay. Well, still, I'm a soft American. 4 days was forever.
Oh no, I don't think I could survive anymore.
Excuse me.
Especially now that I'm a writer, I can't survive without my computer and my
Yeah,
internet.
right. I lost internet one morning for. I usually wake up at 2 o'clock to write, and I woke up, came downstairs, sat in front of my computer, and went, "Oh, no internet." I went back to bed. I was talking to my last podcast was an Irish dude from obviously Ireland, and
Yeah.
and we were talking about Hemingway. And it's like that guy would be drunk on whiskey, sitting in front of his manual typewriter with a cigar in his mouth and a cigarette in his mouth, and like 3 women on his lap pounding out keys and stories. And I can't write because I don't have the internet, and I went back to bed.
Oh yeah. I was watching. It was quite a while ago now because I don't actually watch very much television anymore. I was watching Becoming Jane or one of those Jane Austen knockoffs somewhere along the line, and she's sitting there writing her book by hand, and I'm like, there is no way she wrote 7 drafts. She did
Virginia
not write
Woolf,
7
she did the
drafts.
same thing. Calligraphy. I mean, perfect penmanship. Charles Bukowski would write in a motel room while he traveled back and forth across the country by hand, and he would do it in such a way that he could send the draft away to publishers. This is the 1950s. He could send the draft away to publishers, and they wouldn't be able to tell whether or not he wrote it by typewriter or not.
Ugh. Yeah, and he's like, okay, I can understand writing 1 draft by hand. I used to write like that when I was a teenager, and I was like, there's no way I'm switching to a computer. But I could not imagine the idea of going back for a second draft and looking at that and being like, I have to do this all over again.
Oh.
And forget it if I had a dip pen. Kill me now.
Yeah, I mean, forget about it. I was working on a second chapter rewrite today, and I did like 1,000 words, 2 pages, basically of rewrites. I had already written this stuff. I was just adding words to it. That's all I did. What would that be? Taping stuff, cutting words out, sections, and moving them around. I mean, what would I have had to have done? I have no clue.
You have to rewrite the entire thing, and I think that's what I once heard that's what Tolkien did. Every time he disliked what he was doing, he'd stop right where he was and start rewriting all over again. Yeah, I'm not Tolkien. I could not handle that.
No. The idea of it just gives me a headache.
Oh, I hate rewriting. I hate editing so much. My favorite stage is the planning stage when I'm like, I can't wait to start writing this. And then I start writing it and hate myself. So
that's why I write microfiction. I write a lot of small pieces. I love short fiction because it eventually ends. I
can't do that. I tried, what was it, last week or the week before? I tried writing a flash fiction, 500 words. And I sat there and I'm like, okay, how do I put as much impact onto this as possible? And I pulled out this little, World War II because I love historical fiction, but I can't write it because I work 60-hour weeks. I can't do the kind of research that would make me happy for historical fiction. So I'm like, okay, 500 words, I can do this. Sat down, wrote it, sent it to my critique partners, and they're like, well, nothing happened. I'm like, okay, well, I guess when you write 500 words, you have to be concise. And if there's anything I am not, it's concise.
Yeah, brevity. It's your best friend when you write stuff like that. But like everything else, put it into your, whatever you have and write another one. And then write another one. And then write another one. Just keep writing and writing and writing. If you want to write 500 words concisely, write 1,000,000 words concisely.
Yeah, and I do believe that writing flash fiction is probably one of the best things you can do for your fiction. But
writing tweets. God, man, when I heard about Twitterlature, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Do you Reddit at all?
No.
There's a fantasy writing subreddit. There's a science fiction writers subreddit too. It's not as active, but on the fantasy one, they do writing challenges, like 2 or 3 a week. I put up one, and then a few mods put up a few other ones. There's a 300-word one. I do a 400-word one, and there's a 50-word one. I think there might be a 100-word one. And before I got on the podcast with you, I was working on a 50-word one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Just
How do you
saying, I
even
mean,
do that?
exactly.
I
Brevity.
couldn't
You
even
have to
describe
look
my
at it.
character words. No, I
It
try to
just
do it
really
in
helps.
three
It
things.
really helps. You cut things. I mean, you just, what kind of
Oh,
story do you
yeah.
want to tell? And you have to stay within the limit. 50 words. Okay, fine, whatever. What do I want to cut?
Yeah.
It's so challenging, and it's so worth it. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. I mean, they're pieces of fiction. They're words for the type of writing it's called.
Yeah.
Drabbles are my favorite. 100-word pieces. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
them so much.
Yeah. And I know they definitely attract readers too. But yeah, they're definitely like for skill wise. And that's after I wrote that 500 word one, um, buried it, never to be seen again. Um, I figure, I should try to do that a little bit more often. Right now,
I
I'm in a time
totally would
crunch.
recommend it. I
Yeah,
say start a blog on WordPress.com and publish that sucker, and challenge yourself to write one a day for the
yeah.
next year. Why not?
Well, that's a good
Why not?
idea.
Yeah.
However, it does take 500 words off of what I can do on my novel.
How many words a day do you write in your novel?
Um, Normally I try to do 1,000 a day, or if I'm editing, a chapter a day. Right now I'm in a writing contest with Malfunction, and I'm trying to rewrite the entire novel by Monday. So,
Monday.
um,
Okay.
my editor is being very, very forgiving and just let me know, if you have to only get in half of it, that's okay. And I'm like, no, I'm going to impress her. So,
That's congratulations on that, by the way, because I think you were saying that you had won something too. What did you win?
yeah. Well, it's called the Short Indie Contest. This is the first year that it's running. It's a Twitter contest. And there is a group of editors who've gotten together, and I think there are 10 of them, and each would take up to 100 entries and choose from that one person they wanted to work with for 7 weeks to edit their book for free. So I got picked by one of those editors for 7 weeks of free editing. This is developmental editing, so it's not cheap stuff. Um, it's,
What's not cheap? I can't pay anything. So I mean, is it more
yeah.
than $5?
Yeah, like a typical developmental editor is going to be looking at, for the length of Malfunction, which is sitting at 90K. It would be, $3,000 or more, depending on the editor and their skill.
So that's what drives me crazy, because there are so many. I mean, I went to New York City Comic Con a few years ago, and I sat on one of the panels for independent writers, and
Hmm.
the panel basically, as a collective whole, said there is no way that anybody in this room could make a dime with writing independent literature without investing in yourselves. That
Yeah.
means hiring a graphic artist for your cover. That means hiring an editor to look at your words. And that means hiring a marketer for blah, 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 blah. And they started adding it up, and it was like, you're going to have to spend $30,000 a year to publish your novel. You
Yeah.
can go blah.
There are ways to do it. There are ways to do it. Um, and it all depends on how hardworking you are. You have to do your research. You have to sit down and figure out what's the right way to write and what's the wrong way to write. I think one of the biggest thing I run into with self-published authors is they just don't understand point of view. They head hop, they break point of view constantly. They don't have a main character. Um, and that's a huge turnoff for a reader because the most important thing is point of view, you know?
Yeah.
So, just researching and understanding what you're going to do, what you're doing right there is going to cut a lot of that price down because you don't have to have an editor for that kind of thing. And then
Honestly, you
go
know
ahead.
what I think the worst thing that a writer can do is
Yeah.
think that they're writing enough.
Yeah.
I think that you just need to write, and you just got to stop thinking about where your stuff's going to end up. You just have to keep writing and writing and writing, not for publishing, not for an audience, but because it's in you and it's burning your fingers to get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it can't be for anything else. And because you want to share it, and you just have to find people to show it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I firmly believe that there is an audience for every writer. And if you want to be if you want to be at all successful, you have to know who you're writing for.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Write for yourself.
yeah,
You're your audience. If
exactly.
you're not happy with what you're writing, something's
Exactly.
wrong with what you're writing.
Yep. And that's your audience is going to be someone who's like you. You know, I was talking with a few other authors on Twitter talking about science fiction, about how I was researching certain things and putting it in the book, and a few of them just said, "Look, I like science fiction, okay, but I don't like any of the scientific stuff. Like, I don't want to hear how it works. I already went to school." I'm sitting there thinking, "Why are you reading science fiction then?" Like, and those are obviously not my readers. They're not my readers. I don't write soft, wise science fiction. I
Or
like,
fantasy, space drama, or
yeah, well,
space operas. Yeah.
even in fantasy, you know, there's a certain, okay, I love planning battles and I love writing battles. And if
Yeah.
I'm going to be marketing to someone who likes, you know, werewolves and, you know, ghosts and whatnot, they're not going to be enjoying my work. So I'd be wasting my time to try and include those tropes and be like, well, okay, every paranormal romance has a love triangle, so I better put a love triangle in my epic fantasy. No, you know, and you know that's also why it's really important to read. You know, read your genre, read other genres, understand what you're doing.
Yeah. Reading is so important.
Yeah,
And I don't even say study what you're writing. Read everything that interests you. Read history and romance. Not romance. I don't want to read romance. But read,
yeah,
read scientific, whatever. Just pick up books and start reading them.
yeah,
Just
and
read whatever
definitely,
interests you.
I think that an indie writer, someone who wants to be an indie writer, um, firstly, I suggest if you want to be an indie writer, don't just be an indie writer because you don't want to try to be traditionally published. Like that's not what indie writing is for these days. Indie writing is for serious writers, and you're not going to
But
make it there.
do you strive to be an indie writer? Not to interrupt you, because I'm pretty sure
No, go
your
ahead.
point's going to be amazing, because you're really, you have a lot of really salient points.
Thank you.
Do you strive to be an Indian writer? Do you strive to be an indie writer, or do you strive to be eventually one day considered traditionally published? Or does it matter at the end of the day? Because you'll
I
be so recognized that,
Oh yeah, I think it definitely matters. I think if you're going to be treating this seriously, you need to know what you want to do with it. Like, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing to change people's lives? Are you writing to be rich? Are you writing to be famous? Like each of those things are going to be different. Are you writing because you have one story, you know, one book that you have to write and you don't want to make a career out of it? You just want to get that one story out. There's a lot of writers out there who are like that. Most people believe they have a book in them. And traditional publishing is going to give you a very different thing than self-published writing. I looked at the options and I was going to go traditional. And the more research I did, the more I realized I don't want to be traditionally published. I don't think that that market will serve me. I don't think that the the editors and the marketers and whatnot will serve me. The only benefit I can see out of traditionally publishing is working with a developmental editor, and I'm getting that because I won a contest. So,
that would
um,
take a lot of the burden off you, though, wouldn't it? I mean, one day, let's say they come to you and say, "We'll just take all of this off of your shoulders, and you could just write."
yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's what
And
it does, right?
if
They'll
that,
take your audience, and
exactly,
they'll
and your
take your
money.
burden and the money. We'll take 50% of what you make, and
50, forget that. More like 80.
is it
Um,
80?
it depends. It depends on the publisher and the you know
I need
the
gas for my
legal stuff.
helicopter. My cigars are expensive. Give me 80% of your money.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely, and that's one of the reasons to go with traditional publishers. Like if you want to just write and that's what you're interested in, then that's what you go for. For me, you know, I work 60 hours plus a week. I love my job. I love being a nanny. I love the little girl I work with. but that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I do want a chance to possibly be a mother myself. And I don't want to throw my child in daycare. I've worked in daycare and I can understand why it's necessary, but that's not what I want for my children. So if there's ever a chance when that comes along, I want to be able to work from home, which means I have to be able to make money off of something that I can do from home. And right now, the only option for that is my writing. Now, I do enjoy writing, and there's probably things I can do that would make money better, but I'm not going to be able to make money traditionally published. Most traditionally published authors still have jobs. So, yeah, I mean, I don't expect to be a millionaire. I'm hoping to be able to have enough money that it would be considered a part-time job in about 5 years is my goal. So,
where do you call home?
Where do I call home? Wow, that's not something you ask a MK.
What's an MK?
Sorry, a missionary's kid.
Oh yeah.
I am currently living in Florida, right outside of Orlando.
Oh, okay. I actually lived in Pasco County.
Okay. Yeah.
Went to school near the coast in Port Richey.
Okay.
It's not fun where you're living.
I hate Florida. I hate it.
Yeah, once you live there for a while, that's exactly the reaction that you have. I didn't mind. When I was a kid, I didn't mind it. I had a canoe. We'd go canoeing in the Gulf, but as an adult, all I did was sweat.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I grew up in a country called Papua New Guinea. Most people aren't familiar with that, but it's a small island country right above Australia. The highlands where I live has been considered the best climate in the world, the most comfortable climate in the world. It's gorgeous. Lived on the top of a mountain with the most beautiful view in the world. Moved back to Michigan, which is nice. It's farm country. It's very green. And then I moved down here to Florida where it's all sand and ants and
Cockroaches.
horrible drivers. Yes, cockroaches. Horrible drivers. Horrible drivers.
Mosquitoes. No seamies. Yeah, it's horrible.
So.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, for some reason I didn't think you lived in Florida.
Yeah.
So we have talked for a good 55 minutes, and I think that's a respectable amount of time.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you think that we should have talked about that I just have neglected?
Oh, I told you I had a problem with being concise, right?
No, you should have mentioned that. You should have meant. No, I'm joking. This is a wonderful. I had a wonderful time talking to you. I think we covered a lot of great subjects. And
yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is great.
And again, thank you so much for your willingness to do this with me. I know a stranger coming out of nowhere and saying, "Hey, be on my podcast," and you just saying, "Yes, sir." It was wonderful.
Well, it's great. You know, it's an opportunity for me to try new things and learn how to talk and not freak out about someone hearing my voice. We all hate the sound of our own voice.
Oh yeah. I have to do an intro and an outro to my podcast. I've gotten used to it, but I do it like 2 o'clock in the morning. So all I hear is,
Oh, you have a wonderful voice. You have a wonderful voice. I should probably ask you to do my audiobooks for me.
I'll do them.
Audiobooks for free?
I can't read though. So it's like, yeah, I just find myself not being able to read when I I have a college degree and I'm like completely illiterate when I have to read out loud. I think I lost the ability.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will be doing a little bit of a graphic, so I'm going to steal your image and some other stuff off your Twitter and things, and I'll glue that together. I will send you a notification when I put up the YouTube, and I'll send you another notification when I put up the podcast. So
that's great.
If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. And otherwise, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You as well.
And that was Jillian Purrazzi. Her contact information, of course, will be in the show notes. And check out her novel, Malfunction. She will have, she's available on Wattpad. Her website is beautiful. It's got a gorgeous, I don't know how she did it. It's constant waves. It must be a very long GIF. My next podcast is actually going to be with an author. I believe it's H.G. Chambers. Hoping that works out. And I can have a good conversation with him. He's a fantasy author. Of course, you could follow me, Bry, at it's at Bry Yellow on Twitter. My website is bryanayellow.com. Getting some fiction up there. Today I compiled a nice list of military fiction. Looks like that's going to be about 16,000 words. There's about 8 stories on there. I hope to get that published in the next 3 or 4 months. I'll let you know. Compounded Interest is the novel that I have available on Amazon right now. Check it out. Reviews, rate, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think. Send me emails. The best email address for you to do that at is obviously me@bryanayellow.com. I thank you so much for listening. It really makes me feel good to be able to talk to all of these content creators, these artists, authors. You know, there are so many people out there trying their hardest to create the songs in their soul, and you know, they don't do it for the money. They do it because they feel like they need to, and it feels good to be able to talk to them about, you know, I feel the same. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.